Today's lesson, this evening's lesson is entitled Attitudes Toward Giving. We'll be looking at several different scriptures. The first one is Psalm 96, 8 and 9. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due His name. Bring an offering and come into His courts. Worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. Tremble before Him, all the earth. It should be the desire of every child of God to want to know the whole truth on any subject. What is important to realize in this regard is that the reception of any truth depends upon the attitude of giving that one has toward it. Today, we're going to talk about giving. And we need to ask ourselves, do we really give? You know, we talk about it quite a bit. And whenever there is a disaster or something like that, we donate. We do stuff like that. But what about giving with oneself? Giving of our time. Giving of our attention to someone. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just a small amount is highly appreciated. A phone call, written message, or an email. If you have the time, a personal visit. We often tell our friends and neighbors that they do not understand God's truth on baptism or grace because they do not manifest the right attitude towards God's word of these subjects. Sadly, there are thousands upon thousands of Christians who have closed their ears to what God has said on the subject of giving. We look at some parts of the right attitude toward God's word, but we overlook others. We have to take the whole word of God at all times. There are some who even have an ugly attitude of giving. There are some who feel that giving is not their job. Unfortunately, it's someone else's job to do. Let someone else be the giver. Here are statements that have been heard concerning giving. I get so tired of hearing sermons on giving. Can't the preacher talk about anything but money? Oh, he just gives to be seen of men. Giving of oneself and giving of money. Sometimes it is thought that people give just to be seen, to donate, to statements like these are an index into a man's character. If many told the truth, it might sound like this. I am too selfish to give generously. I am too extravagant with my money to be able to give generously. And I spend too much money foolishly to give generously. So, sometimes what we say and what the truth is doesn't jive there. Sometimes we talk about things and get so tired of, it could be said of people hearing sermons given about giving money, that people say they're tired of doing it, of hearing it. But really, people may be too selfish to give. Sometimes when we hear a preacher or someone talk about things and we don't want to hear it, we find excuses to not hear it. That's all you hear is giving, or that's all you hear is doing something, giving of oneself, giving of money, giving of time. It could be that someone feels guilty. We don't want to hear things if we feel guilty It's one thing to hear someone talk about something that we are involved with and feel good about and everything. But when it comes down to talking about things that we feel guilty about, we sometimes don't want to hear that. It's essential that we manifest a proper attitude of giving. We need to develop the proper attitude of giving. 1 Corinthians 16, verses 1 and 2. Now about the collection for the Lord's people. Do what I told the Galatian churches to do. On the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income, saving it up so that when I come, no collections will have to be made. Giving as we have prospered is a command of God, and we'll be lost if we disregard these commands. We need to give appropriately as to our income and our time. Someone once said, attitude is just as important as truth. For truth is never understood with the wrong attitude. Free will offerings are commanded on the first day of the week, not bake sales, etc. Let us now consider a variety of attitudes that many have toward giving. Mark 18, verse 22. This is some have the attitude of the rich young ruler. Why do you call me good? Jesus answered. No one is good except God alone. You know the commands. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false witness. You shall not defraud. Honor your father and mother. Teacher, he declared, all these I have kept since I was a boy. Jesus looked at him and loved him. One thing you lack, he said. Go, sell everything you have, and give to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. At this, the man's face fell. He went away sad, because he had great wealth. The ruler wanted to go to heaven, and he lived an upright and moral life. He had a desire to follow Christ. No doubt he thought he was ready from any standpoint. He felt that he was ready, and he wanted the answer. I wanted to be told that. He wanted to be told, you are ready. But instead, he got an answer he didn't like. It never entered his mind that his money or how he viewed it was a hindrance to him. His wealth had blinded him. This rich young ruler thought was doing well in keeping the commands of God, but there was something he was overlooking. Jesus said, go sell what you have. Why did he do this? He knew that this young ruler had the wrong attitude toward money. The young man turned and walked away. He loved his money more than he loved the Lord. Beloved, if we have this kind of attitude, we will lose our soul. Many today grasp onto the things they have. They grasp onto material things, money, property, other material things that are temporarily making them feel good, and it's a temporary fix. If we were faced with the attitude, with the dilemma of selling or giving away money, selling our property, what would we do? What would we do? We need to ask ourselves just how much emphasis do we put on what we have? Some people, or many people, most people maybe, are, what's the word? They are recognized for what they have. They are recognized for who they are and what they have. It's an issue that is a worldly issue. And the world today puts strong emphasis on what you have. If we are worldly, we have to realize that our emphasis is on worldly things. Some have the attitude of Judas. John 12, verses 3 through 6. Then Mary took out a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet, wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, he used it to help himself to what was put into it. So, has been said that the temptation commonly comes, that temptation commonly comes through that for which we are naturally fitted. If a man is fitted to handle money, the temptation comes to regard money as the most important thing in the world. Judas was evidently gifted at handling money. That is why he chose to take care of the money. Judas, though, became so fond of money that he became a thief. Judas saw this woman anointing Jesus' feet, an act of surpassing love, but Judas saw it as waste. You see, a man's sight depends on what is on the inside of him. What he sees depends on the condition of his heart. For example, if we like a person, we seldom see his faults, but if we do not like an individual, his faults increase. When I hear one is opposed to the good work because it costs too much, I wonder about their attitude. Is it like Judas? You know, you hear all the time, and I just recently heard it. You hear it every day. And I just recently heard of this happening. Someone with money and property passes away, unfortunately. And this causes much confusion and much resentment in the family because of who's going to get what. And you see very drastic, terrible things done to one another, only because of the lack of love for one another to begin with. But it develops because of property and material things. Some have the attitude of Ananias and Sapphira. Now, a man named Ananias, together with his wife Sapphira, also sold a piece of property. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. The very fact that these two people lied about their, let's just say, I don't think I read all of that. Brought part. He kept part back and brought part and laid it at the apostles' feet. The very fact that these two people lied about their giving Shows beyond all doubt that they had the wrong attitude toward money. They didn't bring all the money that they had. They kept a part back. Every time a person leaves the impression that he is giving as God has prospered him, and then refuses to give liberally, he's just as guilty as Ananias and Sapphira. Why should we think it is worse for them to lie about their giving than for us to lie about our giving? One may say, I don't lie about my giving, I just do not give liberally. Let me ask you this question. Which is worse, to lie to God or to rob God? Malachi 3:8. In Acts 4, verse 36 and 37, Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostle called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold a field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. It's not difficult to understand why Barnabas was called a good man. This kind of man we should strive to imitate. Think of all the good that would be done if all the people in the church were free-hearted, liberal givers, and good like Barnabas. The contrast is striking between Barnabas and the rich young ruler, Judas, and Ananias and Sapphira. Why did Barnabas do this good deed? He had a wonderful attitude of giving. Do you suppose Barnabas ever got mad when a sermon was preached on giving? Just think of that. He was a giver. He gave freely. I am glad that the Bible tells us of being like Barnabas. Reading about Barnabas should give us as much strong desire to give generously. If you do not enjoy hearing lessons on giving, then your heart is out of tune with Christ. Some have the attitude of the poor widow. Jesus said in Mark 12, verses 41 through 44, Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offering were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything that she had to live on." Suppose that on each Lord's Day we were to walk up before the congregation and put our offerings in on the table where all could see it. Some would say I would be embarrassed. You would not be if you gave liberally and sacrificially as the poor widow. If we would all give liberally as God has prospered us, our contribution would increase. We would be adding good works instead of deleting them. One preacher said, "When I look at a well-dressed congregation, I ask, where are the poor? When I look at the collection plate, I ask, where are the rich?" Are we giving sacrificially? We need to ask ourselves that. Some have the attitude of David. 2 Samuel 24:24. But the king replied to Araunah, I don't know if I pronounced that right. "No, I insist on paying you for it. I will not sacrifice to the Lord my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing." So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen and paid 50 shekels of silver for them. I wish we could have this type of attitude. We ought not be giving God our leftovers. We need to ask ourselves what we are doing. every single one of us need to reevaluate our givings. What is our attitudes toward giving? Are we the rich young ruler, Judas, Ananias, Sapphira, Barnabas, the poor widow, David? Or are we giving as God prospered us? We need to ask ourselves these questions when we do give, when asked to give. And tonight, as usual, the invitation is always open. If anyone has any comments, feel free to make. I know sometimes we, as it said, we sometimes don't want to hear about giving. It sometimes makes us feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it may make us feel good. But we have to realize that giving is necessary. Giving of oneself, one's time, one's offerings. It's a necessary part of functioning of the church. It's a necessary thing. And we need to ask ourselves each day, do we give enough? Sometimes giving in our time and effort is more than enough. And many times people do that. So there's more than one type of giving. When we think of giving, we sometimes think of monetary, but think of upkeep of the church, mowing of the yard, patching the roof over and over. Those things are necessary, and that is a big part of giving. And you're giving of yourself and your time and your money. And if you feel that you need to give more, there's always work to do. There's always work to do. And at that, the invitation is always open.